your participation. We soon will be joined by my colleague Joe Luciano, and have we heard from Mr. Rodriguez yet? Oh, speaking of the Honorable Monica Rodriguez, here she is. And so appreciate your presence here this afternoon. We have an action-packed agenda, and we will begin. We'll begin with general public comment. First up, I've got George Buzzetti, followed by Herman.
Trying to get the old camera on so we can get everybody.
Followed by Audrey M.
And this is for 1 minute, correct?
This is for item general public comment.
So does this comment have anything to do with these items? Or is this a comment?
Sir, you got a minute. You got a minute. We're just
For the whole agenda?
yes.
Okay, that's what I was checking for. Because this is such a criminally operating place after all. I want to talk about 2, 3, and 4 and this new JPA with a phony financing game that we've been busting over and over again where you guys are forming things without having CEQAs, without having public input. It's obviously illegal. This place operates as a criminal crime syndicate. I mean, you guys break the law every which way that there is, Curran, and you know that perfectly well. You know me for a long time, Curran. You guys couldn't pass a damn law in Sacramento without me and Celeste King. Okay? Now, you thought that you got rid of the King's game of honest government. And I'm here to tell you after the shit you guys have pulled on me the last 5 years, and now you had to back off in court after I embarrassed your chief head of your stupid court system, we're going to make sure you people start to follow the law. So you might as well throw this thing in the trash can right now and start it over again.
Okay, listen, we're going to be so generous today. We'll give you another 2 minutes, sir, for your multiple items. Yes. Your comments are valued so much that we'd like to hear more of them.
On the items.
I appreciate
On the-
that. Is everybody
On the
gonna take
items.
this much time?
On the items. Don't worry about everybody else, sir. You got 2 minutes.
Well, I'll let everybody else speak. I'm just going to take a few more minutes, a little bit more time on that issue, on good government.
On the items.
It has been one of the items,
Well,
sir.
I
One of
am
the items.
talking about this as far as this is bad government because you're not following proper procedure. This is supposed to be an open, public discussion that follows procedure. And on these items with this JPA and this
Okay.
type of financing where you take the financing away from the public, you guys are just getting the public mad because of the corruption going on. And 2 of the people are here who brought the FBI into this stupid town anyway. And we're just not going to allow this to happen anymore, okay? So why don't you get it all through your thick heads? And why don't you go back to the way it was when Celeste King IV and Celeste King III were alive?
Stay on the agenda, please, sir.
And let's start operating a
Thank you.
proper legal government,
Thank-
unlike this crap we have now.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm
Mr.
sure
Mr.
you
Herman.
feel that way.
Mr. Herman.
Mr. Chair, would you like to start with 2 minutes for the multiple item?
Correct. 2 minutes for multiple items, sir.
Is this called in-house? In-house unlawfully to state that your proposal for river improvements like sea breeze improvements and the introduction of resolution for public financing authority when there's no public comment? Why do you have to hide these bonds? The public wants to know. Where's Miss Richardson and the CRA? Plaintiff, known and unknown. But the effect of commerce and the movement and the commodities in this state of California and LA is really fucked up. To wit, extort the transmission of our property in our community as we are the shareholders, fucking Angelinos that are tired of this fucking corruption. Can you believe that? We're fucking tired of corruption. And that's right, the FBI is in here to stick their foot up the bitch, Miss Martinez, and the other bitch for unlawfully saying that they have a community impact statement about these bonds. Are you fucking out of your mind? I'm talking about item number 3, 4, and fuck Jose Weezer on 4. You got it? For a bitch, for a hoe, for a cunt. FBI rat. And then you go into the other item, like an item 12, CD 14, the city clerk report ordinance relative to Little. Fuck you. Little Tokyo is the same as North Korea. Keep fucking with America and we're going to drop a bomb on you, fucking Rue, and your fucking wetback Jose Weezer, that fucking traitor from Zacatecas. Goddamn fucking wetbacks. Now, as far as my general public comment. The interest of public is this. We want to shine, but we can't. I get 3 minutes, bro. It's 3 minutes, bro. That's what you gave the other gentleman. Why are you fucking with me?
Continue.
Why are you fucking with me?
That's why I asked if
Why are you fucking with me?
Continue.
The moment you interrupt a public speaker, you violate the Brown Act. You have no regard for my civil liberties and my constitutional protection when I got the floor, nigger. I got the floor. Don't point your finger at me, nigger. I point the finger at every nigger and cunt and bitch and hoe when I tell you how I run the city. And as long as 54950 the Brown Act is here, I plan to make zone change. I plan to have an opportunity for the public to represent on item 2 of this motion, item 3 of this motion, and item 4, because we don't want your fucking river project unless there's public input and we have the right to say so. So as long as you continue to censor me and suppress me of my First Amendment, fuck you, Joe Busciano, you stupid Italian, and the other wetback fat bitch.
Okay, Wayne Spindler. Two minutes for multiple, 1 minute for general.
So, May 2016, right? Remember what you told me, Price? You're going to make an example out of me. Yeah, well, we're going to make an example out of number 4. What are you doing getting into bed with FBI targets, setting up phony money laundering transaction schemes? You guys are in enough trouble? What's going to happen here? CD 14, you don't do business with the 14th Council District. You don't do business. This guy's got nothing. You don't even allow him to be on a committee. How come Jose Weezer is not allowed to be on a single fucking committee? You don't want to do business with him, yet you want to funnel money into his projects. And there's people here today, and there's people listening, and they're 3 hours ahead of us, is they real worried about this fucking thing on 345. They're like, I don't know about that shit. That looks like something we've seen before. And you see, that's what Michael Avenatti got indicted for. And you're going to get indicted for the same shit in interstate commerce, issuing junk bonds on projects that are being held in secret. You don't want 345, you want to get rid of 345 and head for cover because they bitches, they snitches, they cunts, they motherfucking everybody's here. Everybody's here looking at this shit and we don't want it. And you got to understand, you can't play the same game anymore because you took all of your goddamn power and you put it into one white nigger that's sitting here. And he's got nothing to offer you because I can't issue you bonds. I'm not a bank. You see, I'm not a bank. Well, the 1 minute.
All right, thank you. 1 minute.
Now, the 1 minute is that when you get on TV, and you falsely accuse somebody of a crime, you better fucking be sure who you fuck with. See, you didn't know anything about me. You just think that it's just some white fucking nigger that's going to go back to his little Jew fucking house and take his cocaine and go with his bitch. I don't take drugs, I don't drink, I don't even smoke a fucking cigarette. I'm a 24/7 fool. Real niggas. See, the problem is that current price used to be that kind of guy. But you start wearing a suit and a tie, you start getting all the compliments in the world, and you lost your nerve. And now Del Richardson gets sued last month for discrimination in federal district court. They dismissed it, but that bitch gonna come back pro per. So fuck
Thank
you
you.
and fuck
Next
the
up,
police.
Audrey? She here? He here? Dr. Tom Williams. Dr. Williams.
For general public comment?
General public comment, yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. General public comment. Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for Safe Communities, Sierra Club, and a few others. Basic elements. What are we going to do with SB 50? What happens if it passes? And how will that affect the economic development of the city of LA? Case in point, Huntington Drive, all of Huntington Drive from within the city of Los Angeles, Mission Road, and extending to Chavez could be 5 to 7 stories or more. And the question as to how far back from the street. Right now, it's all zoned primarily for 3 stories. But that corridor, the whole thing is eligible under SB 50 as it was 827. So we're quite concerned regarding how that will affect both the economic development of our communities, neighborhoods, and the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close general public comment and also the multiple agenda public comment. And members, unless there's an objection, I propose that we move items 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 on consent,
Move the items.
and that we move items 6 and 7. We approve the CAO's report recommendations for both of those grants. Without objection, that will be the order. Okay, next up, Mr. Clerk, is item 2. Item 2, 3, and 4. Let's take them. I'm sorry, 1. I got ahead of myself. Let's take item 1.
Item number 1 is a Item number 1 is a verbal report from the Economic and Workforce Development Department relative to opportunity zones, including marketing opportunities and a new website.
Okay, opportunity zones, something we are all very interested in. I was in Washington, D.C. last week, 2 weeks ago with my colleagues, and one of the topics at the League of Cities meeting was opportunity zones. And I wanted to make sure that we're doing all we can to take advantage of this resource to pump some additional investment dollars in our communities of need. And those communities are identified all over our city. And so without further ado, Jackie, let me turn the floor over to you. And
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jackie Rodriguez. I'm with the Economic and Workforce Development Department. Our department has been tasked with marketing and promoting the city projects and investments in the opportunity zones and the opportunity funds. The first thing that we did was created a website that I want to present to you today. I'm going to go over a couple of pages. I'm going to give you a brief background on the opportunity zones, how they were developed, but it's going to be very brief. I'm more than welcome questions. So the opportunity zones or census tracts are generally composed of economic distressed communities that qualify for the program. Throughout the nation, governors were asked to submit different census tracts that were eligible. In Los Angeles, we have 194 opportunity zones approved throughout 13 council districts. The designation of an opportunity zone is to help spur development of identified communities in exchange for investments in the actual zones. The first step that we did is create the website, so I'm going to go through it. Hopefully. The first thing is what we did is we market into different things. So what are the opportunities? And we gave a brief description. coming? Somehow this is not working. I'm just gonna have to. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to talk through it while we go through some technical difficulties.
Okay.
So the first section is what are the opportunity zones? We have a brief description of what they are, what they consist of, as well as some of the federal legislations that govern each of the opportunity zones, links to the IRS, etc. The second portion is like why in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles has a wide, diverse background, and we welcome all in new expanding businesses. We have built one of the most diverse and forward-thinking cities in history. We have instant name recognition around the globe. LA is known for places where new ideas and fresh thinkings are much part of the landscape, as some of our beaches, mountains, and overall landscape. We also have an ample and largely diverse pool of candidates, as well with regional connectivity across the LA basin. One of the things that we do want to focus on is not only our airports, which are the 5th busiest in the world and also the 2nd busiest in the U.S., but also our ports, which are ranked number 1 and 2 in the nation in terms of container traffic, both Los Angeles and Long Beach. We also have Measure M that over the next 40 years will bring over $120 billion in investment in transportation. All of those make Los Angeles a perfect, ideal opportunity or place to invest in opportunity funds. Thank you. Okay. Is the other one still open? Okay. So as I was saying, Yay! Sorry, little small victories. So this is the first page of the website. It kind of gives not only information on what the opportunity zones, why Los Angeles, why invest in Los Angeles. Some of the
What's the website for the listening audience?
Sure, I'm sorry. The website is a tab under it's ewddlacity.com, and on the portion above on one of the toolbars, it does say opportunity zone. It's a drop down. And then it has all of the different web pages. Why Los Angeles? As I was talking about some of the, not only our workforce centers, our diverse workforce, but also education campuses throughout Los Angeles, regional connectivity, airports, ocean ports, rail, housing, leading industry, as well as location. I mean, Los Angeles is the hub of a lot of the entertainment, sports venues. You know, I have my ultimate favorite LA Dodgers here, so I'm partial to that as well. Next, we have LA at a glance. This page has a lot of the demographics of Los Angeles. So when we talk about what is our population, why come to Los Angeles? What do we have in the sense of not only economic institutions, leading research universities, employments by industries, and each of these, it gives you what the total number of employees, what year it's retroactive to 4 years. So it's 4 years worth of data as to different types of industries, employments by industries in the city of Los Angeles. Our labor force, as well as promise zone information, and our anchor institutions. We have, world-renowned not only research hospitals, but universities, as well as communities, colleges, and vocational schools, and our list of our major employers. The final thing that we have is in collaboration with the City Planning Department, who has been absolutely wonderful. They have developed a website that has all of our planning information. on this website, you can actually click you can click an address. It will tell you whether it's in the opportunity zone, etc. See if I can zoom in. There are layers. Developers might want to say, okay, well, I want to know where there's an opportunity zone with a transit-oriented community overlap, or maybe CPIO, former redevelopment CRA areas. Sorry, CPIO, or Community Plan Implementation Overlay Districts. They can click on any one of these layers, and it would show on the actual map. You can zoom in. And it gives you the actual land use and zoning of each of the areas, as well as what is in the actual opportunity zone. I do
Based
apologize.
on the address.
Based
basically.
on the address, correct. I do apologize. I did have individual maps for each of your council offices. Unfortunately, because when the computer went down, I was unable to open them, but I can forward them to your office.
Please do.
There are individual maps that list all of the opportunity zones in your area. So our next steps are, we have met with the majority of the council offices, and we are in the process of establishing a prospectus. So a prospectus is like a marketing tool for the opportunity zones. It will have information on upcoming properties that are located in the opportunity zone, that are available, what the opportunity is for that project, what would we like to see, what the square footage is, a picture of the location, even if it's a lot, where is it located in the city of Los Angeles. We will have each of the prospectus will have a page dedicated to each of the council offices or council districts that have opportunity zones listed within them. That should be ready in the next couple of weeks. There are some input that we still need from some of the council offices that we are waiting, and then that will be ready to publish, and we'll be marketing it on our website as well as individual council offices.
When is the website going to go live?
It is live now. So both, and I will stress that the website it's a living document. It's not going to be static. There could be changes to it. If there's any comments that you would like to change or add, please feel free to contact me, and we will make that as possible.
And I understand
as possible.
that initially only the public properties are going to be in this database.
Correct.
Ultimately, though, we also want to
We are
identify
working-
private sector opportunities,
Yes,
correct?
we are working with the city attorney to get the verbiage so that we are able to list those properties and there's no identification for the city. So we are working with the city attorney to have that
Okay.
also be a possibility.
Thank you. Members? Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you been able to provide a template so that, I know each of our areas are very different, but so that way you have a consistent kind of set of narratives about each of the areas so that when someone is looking at the prospectus and trying to evaluate the different opportunities that they're looking at,
Like and like.
yeah, so that they're looking at similar information.
When we met with the council offices, what I described is actually a quadrant. So the first would be the picture of the individual property. The second would be different anchor institutions, places of interest of the actual council office or council district, and then what the opportunity is, what the address, brief physical location, and then what is needed in the community. What is also the opportunity for that? So that quadrant was given to all of the members that attended, the staff members that attended.
Okay.
So we'll change them up to see, sometimes the picture might be at the bottom, but just for ease of reading. But yes, they will all have the same type of information.
Terrific. Thank you.
Mr. Buscano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report. I, too, witnessed firsthand the interest from municipal leaders in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago when there was a workshop on opportunity zones. There's actually a standing room only. The fire marshal had to come in and kick some municipal leaders out because of, it was this pack. Sorry, it was us. It was me. But just know that this is truly an opportunity for cities across the country, and I'm happy to see this finally come before us. When we talk about, tracking the activity on the website, is there an opportunity for us to manage or at least get an update on the traffic that's come in from people who are visiting the site. Who are those folks who are visiting the site, and can we see how effective this website will be in the long run?
I will work with the web designers. I know that there is a way to do that.
Okay.
I will see what they have in terms of, for this webpage, what kind of traffic they have. But I know that they do have statistics on that.
I've also noticed the Opportunity Zone website in neighboring Long Beach for us down at the harbor. They have an interactive map that shows opportunity zones in and around areas where there's already investment coming online. Is that something that we can look at here?
We are actually working with that
Okay.
as well. So the phase 2 would be more interactions with the actual map and the website, and coming in, Measure M, HHH, whatever we can to have that. We don't want it be. We are the city of Los Angeles, so our maps are huge.
Right.
If you notice how much I had to actually drill down to get something where
Right.
it's readable, sometimes we might only be able to get the overlays, which is still fine because that will still provide the information once you drill down to that actual place. So it might just be an overlay that we're able to provide at this time.
Appreciate that. And then lastly, what are our plans on how to promote and publicize this website?
We are working with our website team to increase traffic. We will be sending it out to all of the offices, all of our elected offices, to hopefully promote it within your individual newsletters, websites, links to it. We will also increase, there's a way of increasing Google visibility so that when you type in LA Opportunity Zone or LA OZ, it can actually come up. So we are in the process of doing that.
So what I learned from that workshop with the National League of Cities is municipalities, there's so much we can control in opportunity zones. It's the public sector, rather the private sector, to come in and invest. But it's up to us to promote and market these zones. So I'm happy to finally see this come forward and to move on it. And thanks for your leadership, Mr. Chair. And I'm getting this to committee. So let's blast it out. Thank you.
Well, it is something that is very important, and I think we all have recognized that since it was initially proposed, and we know it was a year or so before the rules and regs came into place, and so time is still of the essence because this thing expires in what's the timing on this?
2028.
2028. So investments need to be made now to take advantage of that. So one thing that we did learn in Washington D.C. is that no one is doing much, and so we have a chance to really distinguish ourselves. That's why I was anxious to make sure we have this briefing today. And I hope you can come back in 60 days and give us an update on where we are, what's in, what's not in, and how we can really make this the standard for other websites around the country that are seeking to encourage and facilitate opportunity zone investments.
Thank you for your work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie, very much. And if there are no other objections, we will receive and file this report and look forward to a 60-day update.
Okay.
We're continuing it?
I don't know. What are we doing? Okay, well. All right, well, I'm requesting some action. That is 60 days, we have an update. Is that possible?
Yes.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, then that'll be the order.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, Mr. Clerk.
Would you like to take 2, 3, and 4 together?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll read those into the record. Item number 2 are reports from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to an Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD, Establishment Policy and Public Financing Authority appointments. Item number 3 is a motion from Council Members Farrell and Martinez relative to an updated River EIFD feasibility study to reflect the latest changes impacting the city's proposal for river improvements. And number 4 is as City Administrative Officer and Economic and Workforce Development Department reports relative to the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Authority Transit-Oriented Development Planning Grant for the Downtown EIFD.
Okay, thank you. We've got a couple of comment cards. Let's take those first. 1 minute each. Carrie Sutkin. followed by Dr. Tom Williams. 1 minute each. 1 minute each. This is number 2, 3, 4.
1 minute each item?
Total.
Me? Okay, thank you
Over
very
1 minute.
much. My name is Carrie Sutkin. I live in Elysian Valley. I would be directly impacted by the LA River EIFD. My concern is, along with our neighborhood councils, we have an alliance of river communities that represents 16 neighborhood councils. We've been talking about this and monitoring this since the city council first introduced it. We've requested the city and the Economic Workforce Development Department come out and speak to us, and we've gotten no, wait till the council decides. So here we are. We found out over the weekend, 30 seconds left to tell you that this is severely impactful of small property owners that would live in this impacted area. We don't even have a map, sir. There's no project description. We don't know the list of projects, the costs, the revenues to be generated, the costs that an EIFD would, incur on the taxpayers in terms of bonding and such. So it's so incomplete. But we would urge you to hold off on appointing a public financing authority at least until you can review a project. We have received nothing.
Okay, well, we're still a little ways off making those
That's the item
appointments.
before you.
Well, that's correct. That's give us authority to do that. But my point is, the other point is, we have several individuals from EWDD that are here. Let me just ask someone to approach her and see if we can at least provide the information that she's seeking and set up a follow-up meeting. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, and especially the Transportation Committee of the Sierra Club Angeles chapter. We're quite concerned regarding congestion pricing, and especially if you're going to get involved with Metro, because nobody knows where they're going so far. We've prepared what we consider a reasonable congestion pricing cordon, as they call it, the area, rather than the highways. 110 works, 10 works, but I say the others are a real problem. So we're quite concerned regarding congestion pricing, how it will affect virtually all of downtown, because you're almost defined as a transit-oriented community or a development. So we're quite concerned about how economics and workforce will be incorporated in a timely fashion before 2 years from now.
Yeah, hopefully sooner. Hopefully it is sooner, but good government takes time sometimes. Enhanced infrastructure financing districts. Let's ask the CLA and the EWDD to come up and give us an update on where we are with this exciting tool in the toolbox.
You get me again.
Okay, again,
Good afternoon.
thank you.
Good afternoon, Dora Huerta with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. Before you, there are two CLA reports, one relative to an establishment policy for EIFDs and one relative to an appointment process for public finance authorities, which are the oversight bodies to EIFDs. Hi, is this better?
A little close,
Okay.
that's fine,
Great.
yeah.
So I'll repeat what I just said. Dora Huerta with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. There are two reports before the committee, one relative to an establishment policy for EIFDs and one relative to the appointment process for EIFD public finance
Please,
authorities.
gentlemen, you're being disruptive. One more time and you'll have to go. I'm sorry, continue.
Thank you. An EIFD is a tool that local jurisdictions can use to finance community revitalization and infrastructure projects, primarily through the use of tax increment financing in a defined geographic area. The April report that you considered and adopted recommended that we approve the EWDD proposed establishment policy as amended. We made some amendments to ensure that any request for an EIFD go through a motion and a formal process rather than an administrative process through an email request or a form. That was one amendment. We also amended any consideration of an EIFD to incorporate certain scenarios. During the EDC committee, there were concerns that in certain instances there could be a contribution of more than 50% of the tax increment in a certain area. And the council members wanted us to ensure that we provide adequate justification for when we would provide more than 50% of the revenues generated in that area. So we asked for different levels of analysis in our amendments. So any policy and any recommendation to move forward with an EIFD would provide different scenarios, different financing scenarios, and they would all have to be approved through council and the mayor. At the time the policy was adopted, we were also instructed to come back with recommendations on how the council could go forward and appoint members to a public finance authority. So the most recent report before you, dated January 2019, outlines our recommendations for the PFA. Statute prescribes the composition of a PFA to require that the membership include two different scenarios. If there are two different scenarios, the composition would be different. If the city created its own EIFD, the membership shall consist of 3 members of the legislative body and 2 members of the community, or the public, chosen by the legislative body. If the EIFD includes more than one participating taxing district, that is, if we partner with the county, the majority of the members would have to be members from the legislative bodies and 2 members minimum from the community. So to meet that, our report recommends that the mayor appoint the council members to a PFA, including a member who represents the geographic area of that district, and that the 2 public members be appointed by the council members. The 2 community members be appointed by the council members. Those are the recommendations that we have in that second report.
Okay, again, these EIFDs are an exciting opportunity depending on how they're set up and laid out. Have any cities done them yet, as far as we know?
We know that 3 cities have formed PFAs, and that includes West Sacramento, the city of West Sacramento, the city of Laverne, and Mesa Otay down south. I believe West Sac is the only one that has taken it to the finish line and actually completed and formed the EIFD.
All right, so
Others have taken just the first preliminary step of establishing PFA.
still a lot to learn and still opportunities for us to get it right. Do the council members themselves have to sit on these boards, or can they have a rep or an alternative? I know that's subject of, in fact, a motion later, but it appears that requiring council member participation on all boards might be a bit cumbersome.
That's right. The statute currently requires that they be members of the legislative body. In fact, the other 3 cities do include council members on their PFA board. It does not allow for designee at this point.
Okay, still open for discussion. Mrs. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it indicated, and I just wanted to be explicitly clear about the appointing of the 2 public members, that they would actually be appointed by the council member that represented that area, so that it in fact was reflective of the local community, and more importantly, even drilling down even more, making sure that those individuals were from that actual council district, so that we don't have appointees that are not related to that subject area in question.
Yeah, so I'll address the first issue about the council member being from that area. These EIFDs may be spread across multiple council districts. So let's just say, for instance, if there were to be a river EIFD, it might go through multiple council districts. So to say that the council member must come from that area, we say that the council would apply. Well, the council would make that appointment jointly.
So then could we assure or prescribe that in the appointee of the public members that they are actually in the affected? I mean, for me, it's really important that the folks understand what the dynamics are of that local community. And so to broadly kind of say public members appointed by the council doesn't quite get us to assuring that they are individuals from that immediate area, from that community that have a stake and an understanding of what the dynamics are. So if we could,
Yes.
if we could amend that
Amend
to
that.
reflect that, that would
The
be
members
great.
be residents of the city. Is that sufficient? Because, again, the area is.
Let's make it broad, but be as inclusive
Okay.
so we can, because I agree with the councilwoman, we want to make sure that individuals have a stake in
They're
the game.
stakeholders, you're
Yeah,
right, that they
yeah,
have
yeah.
an understanding and a stake, so if that could be amended to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate that. Also, what would be the anticipated level of meetings for the PFA? How often?
I don't know. I think it also depends greatly on the amount of revenue generated in that area. I think if there's a very complex financing plan with multiple projects, then there may be more to meet on, right?
So it
There's
might
a
be
lot of
more in the startup phase and then kind of
right,
less as,
absolutely.
okay. All right.
Any questions more? Mr. Buscato.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're good?
I'm excited about today's committee meeting, by the way. These are meaty items. We're ready to move on something. I'm not as frustrated as last time we met. But I'm happy to see this. Happy to see John here. John, I still love you, for the record.
He knows he feels a
Just make, he's happy today. Take advantage of it. He's happy.
So you got it.
So we, thanks to SCAG, we have they funded a feasibility study for our waterfront communities on EIFDs, and that for San Pedro Wilmington, it clearly showed that, definitely feasible to have an EFID in the San Pedro waterfront and Wilmington communities. With that being said, I understand Ms. Rodriguez's concerns that, if we were to have these PFAs, we can have multiple PFAs here in the harbor, in South LA, in Pacoima, in the valley, along the river. So there's a lot of, governmental oversight and PFAs, which kind of just, I don't know if it's feasible for a city this large, right? And I believe your report even indicated that it would be too cumbersome for large cities like ours. So is there an opportunity for us to explore a single body that oversees all EIFDs citywide?
That is certainly John Wickham CLA's office. That's certainly something that we could look into. That would require there would be two ways to approach it. One would be to
Change
seek state law
Right.
change to accommodate that. The other would be basically to make one big area for the city of Los Angeles, and then you can go from there. I think that's probably not going to work. But what we could do is take a look at changes in state law that would allow some of the facilitation of that. I think our bigger concern would be if we asked the county to participate, because your city council has 15 members, the board of supervisors has 5 members, and they have the entire county of Los Angeles. So if all 88 cities start creating EIFDs, City of Los Angeles creates multiple EIFDs, you could see their reluctance in joining an EIFD board, because they would be in EIFD meetings all day long. So I think we do have some very unique problems in governance over EIFDs that we should probably explore.
And I respect the governance structure, but it's also more bureaucratic, to the point where we're going to continue to talk about these EFIDs and not see anything come to life. So is it possible then to, Mr. Chair, direct the CLA to report back with recommended changes to state law regarding the composition of the public finance authority's governing structure that would be better suited for the city?
I think they made some recommendations along those lines already.
Not in the report.
So, no, so you're talking about broadening, so instead of having multiple locals,
Right.
having one large. So that's kind of the antithesis of what my concerns are, is that I think it's for some of our areas that have hyperlocal concerns that need to be addressed, you lose.
They know the area well, better than.
So I actually have concerns about that.
I think one of our other
Can we
concerns,
potentially maybe look at,
Let's try to get this question.
maybe looking at a JPA with the county or an MOU with the county?
Some of the strategies.
Right,
that could
right,
be
right.
used.
Yeah.
But I totally respect what Monica is saying as well. I mean, why would I have someone from San Pedro dealing with an EFID in Pacoima or CD7 or
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the other
just trying to
concerns,
streamline this to make it as simple as possible?
as well as from a staffing level. If we have
Right.
multiple EIFDs, maybe there is a way to streamline staffing so you don't have an independent staff for every EIFD and the costs associated with that. I think that might be an even bigger concern in terms of efficiency in operating these. So we can look at absolutely both of those concerns to ensure local review and control, but find efficiencies. And I don't know if there's a way to balance those two issues, but we will absolutely look at that.
If the chair's okay with it. I mean,
I'm fine with that, Michael.
Yeah, no, I just have a follow-up question, and I think it might help address that. The first course of action is an initial feasibility study, correct? Which may or may not then result in an EIFD being established. So to the extent, just to address your concern, I think, Mr. Buscaino, we don't know how many are actually going to get to that point where we actually have the authority established and correct? So, I just, I think it's kind of, we're in a circumstance of whoever gets to that finish line first. I think to the woman who came to discuss on this issue, there's still a lot of conversation to be had in terms of the feasibility and the establishment of these EIFDs. And I think that's part of the initial engagement strategy that we need to deploy. And then at which case we determine whether or not it continues to move forward. I think that's when we have the local the conversation. But
Sure.
I'm curious, these are the first in the queue that we're considering, correct? For the ones that are proposed for 13 and 14? That are items 4 and 5? Or So, we're still in the very early stages of this conversation to even ascertain whether or not they're feasible, correct? So, I respect what he's saying. I question whether or not we are going to have the demand for a broader citywide kind of board or body versus the local that is going to be related to the specific concerns.
Sure.
It's just my
well,
initial thoughts on that.
I love pilot programs. So if we're to pilot this in my district, since we're ready to rock and roll, so if we're looking at, and I know in talking to Sharon, we're looking at ways to kind of overcome some of the bureaucratic red tape, and love to help jumpstart it in the San Pedro Wilmington waterfront community. So,
Right.
for the record,
All right, well, I know there's,
Look at that.
the race is on for all the right reasons. But members, if there's no objection, let's approve the recommendations from CLA reports of April the 12th, 2018, and April the 14th, 2019. Instruct the CLA to draft a resolution supporting an amendment to state law to allow appointees of an FIFD to designate a alternative.
No, we can't designate an alternative, correct?
Well, this is change the law.
Oh, to
We're
change the law.
suggesting that
Got it.
we explore changing the law that would permit that. Currently, we don't.
looking at state law, right?
Right. And that we approve the motion recommendations, and there was your recommendation to,
For the local appointee, the public appointees be local to the area?
right. Yes, so there's review and control at the local level, that will be included. And then, Councilman, you had a,
Yeah, you mentioned
Sure.
something about looking at the state law and maybe having you come back to us and finding ways to streamline it.
right.
Absolutely.
And actually, it doesn't say here, but I'd like for you to come back and say 90 days, so just sort of an update, this is where we are, this is what's happening. So we can sort of monitor that along with opportunity zones. In ways that we haven't before, members, unless there's an
Yeah,
objection.
and just for the member of the public who is here on the river, this is, just to be clear, this is just a feasibility, so nothing's moving on this just yet. And there will be opportunities for the public to be engaged and to give feedback, correct?
So item 2 is to create the overarching policy. So item 2 is not about approving any EIFDs whatsoever.
Right.
It's only creating a structure under which the council will in the future evaluate EIFD proposals. And as you, Mr. Buscaino, as you know, you've jumped ahead to try and start moving San Pedro and Wilmington. Mr. Bonin has done the same for Venice, and
Now we have a process.
so this process will help advance those individual community evaluations, and so that will come back in terms of the feasibility analysis, et cetera. So.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
And so let's also, we'll approve the motion and approve the EWDD report recommendations as presented. There are no objections. That will be the order. Thank you. Thank you for the presentations.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, to clarify for the record, all
Yes.
those amendments would be for item number 2, but not 3 and 4.
Correct. Okay, next item.
Our last item is item number 5.
Next and last item.
This is a report from the Economic Workforce Development Department and the Workforce Development Board. Also, city attorney, a city administrative officer has also submitted a report updated 3/22 relative to the America's Jobs Center of California Center Workforce Center operators' request for proposals for the contract period through June 30th, 2020.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Aurora Brasco with the CAO's office. Before you is our department report and the Department of Economic and Workforce Development Department's transmittal requesting approval of the request for proposals to select workforce center operators. The department's transmittal was prepared in response to the council's direction in December to redraft and release a new RFP, given their concern about the original contractor selection process. In response, the Workforce Development Board did not agree to re-release the RFP, and EWDD alternatively made changes to the funding proposals to be responsive to the council and to the board. The recommendations, I should note, in our report and the department's report only address the operator selection and don't address funding or contractor selections, which they will address in the annual plan.
Okay. Robert?
Good afternoon. Robert Science, Assistant General Manager, Economic and Workforce Development Department. So, first of all, I just want to thank you for your patience with us through this process. I do believe that this was an abnormal process that we've went through in terms of timing and involvement. But I do want to thank you for your patience. With our new leadership and Mr. John Reamer, we actually...
Who's in the back of the room, standing quietly?
Yeah. So I thought I had the corner in the back of the room, but he beat me to it. We have brought everyone together and actually went back to the process that we really truly believe is the way that we need to do workforce development, which is involving all departments, all legislative bodies that need to actually approve our recommendations. The recommendations that you have before you, or the revised recommendations, actually do 4 things, and which does meet the concerns from both an operational standpoint as well as from the council and our Workforce Development Board. And number 1 of those, and I'll just quickly say for you to note the differences, is that's to fund the Community Career Development Center in the Wilshire Community Planning area. So it's keeping that organization within the Koreatown community in CD10, which we think is vital and important both for the Koreatown community as well as one of our largest employment districts. Secondly, it was to keep the YPI WorkSource Center in the Pacoima area, and YPI is an important partner, but the Pacoima community deserves to actually have a full-blown WorkSource Center inside that community. It's one of the busiest areas within our system. We chose not to fund an additional center in the Westlake. We have PACE that covers the Westlake, and we think that does that proficiently. And then we also want to establish, not just establish, but to actually expand resources for what we called a WorkSource Sector Center at Valley College. And Valley College, like many of our community colleges, work with all of our WorkSource centers in the Valley. This will provide for a coordinator position to actually have more integrated resources, and will also draw upon some of the resources that the community college has that's been investing in our sector training, in particular our academy, our MTA bus driver academy, our biotech, and others. So there'll be a huge resource that'll be available to our WorkSource Center, and it will be located at the academy. The rest of the recommendations do stay the same, and the dollar amounts that we projected in the first go-around stays the same as well.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank EWDD and the Workforce Development Board for sending these revised recommendations to us today. We all know that our workforce centers serve to connect people with workforce training, educational program, and jobs. It's a regional system that we need to ensure is serving our most needy populations. That's why I was concerned, as well as colleagues, were concerned with the original recommendations because two areas that previously received services, Pacoima and Koreatown, but no longer recommended for funding. These revised recommendations correct that issue, and we appreciate the description and the discussion associated with that. In the future, I hope we can do a better job at assessing need when crafting our RFPs, looking at factors like unemployment rate and poverty level when it comes to deciding where to place these services, and I'm sure we all agree, as well as placement of these centers. We don't want to have two centers just a mile from each other. We need, and then leave a whole area out. Just doesn't make sense. So, members, I'm going to recommend that we approve these recommendations from EWDD and WDS, but I want to give you an opportunity to make any comments that you may have at this time.
Good.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yeah, I just have a question. So what is going to be the next round of RFPs that get issued? What's the timing for that?
So our next set of RFPs will be for the Youth Source Center, and that will be within the next 2 years. We would have that forthcoming. We'll start the planning now to be able to catch up with that. And then we're looking internally how to improve the procurement process in terms of separation of duties and those type of issues. So that's under consideration.
Is a 3-year term on these?
It's 3 years with 1 year. Yeah.
1 year option to renew. Well, John Reamer knows something about the procurement process, so I suspect that that'll be dealt with. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Buscal?
I'm good, thank you.
So if there are no objections, we'll approve the revised recommendations from the EWDD and WDS, WDB.
There you go.
Easy for me to say, I know. Board. If there are no objections, that will be the order. Mr. Clerk, what other business do we have before us at this time?
The desk is clear.
Desk is clear. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's like, whatever. He's saying whatever comes out.
Thank you, Robert. Good job.
And bingo.